Just look at the flowers.
The Walking Dead has been on our screens for over a decade. Starting in 2010, the 11-season television drama was inspired by a series of comics, and so far there have been 154 episodes, not counting the spin-off series. Today, we're going to take a peek at the most heartbreaking, gut-wrenching moments in The Walking Dead. The Governor's Daughter. The Governor is one of the main villains in the show, and his arc spans over seasons 3 and 4. Like all the characters on The Walking Dead, he isn't just a mindless caricature, but he has a deep and rich history. Despite the fact that he's a complete sociopath who murders innocent people left and right, he still has tragedy in his backstory. He lost his daughter, Penny, to the outbreak when she was bitten, but rather than being able to grieve for her, he couldn't accept that she had died. He locked up Penny once she turned into a walker in a cage in his house, spending time sitting with her and talking to her. When you think that the walkers are just reanimated corpses of the dead, it's pretty grim that he was spending so much time with his dead daughter. Obviously, despite all the horrible things he has done to other people, he couldn't let go of his own family. When Rick's group found out what was going on, Michonne disposed of Penny with her sword in front of Penny's father, making the governor hate the group even more. Essentially, he had to watch his beloved daughter die twice. Glenn's murder. I'm still not over this. Glenn had been with the main party since the beginning, with him saving Rick when he got trapped in the tank. He had been by Rick's side through all his struggles and was the kind, reasonable, hardworking member of the team who kept things going. Glenn had a wonderful relationship with his wife Maggie, and the two were expecting a baby together. However, tragedy struck when Negan hunted down the gang and chased them into a trap, and he ruthlessly executed 2 members of Rick's troop, including Glenn. He slowly, painfully beat Glenn to death as the other members of the group were forced to watch, including Maggie, who wept as her husband died in front of her. The fact that such a long-standing, beloved member of the show wasn't safe from Negan's wrath made him a more terrifying villain, and the absolute kindness of Glenn as a character made his loss even more painful. Glenn had managed to evade death's clutches more than a few times, so everyone had their fingers crossed that he would somehow come out alright, but it was not meant to be. The show creators obviously wanted to keep things accurate to the comics, and his death scene was recreated almost exactly from the original source. It was excruciatingly graphic, which made it all the more difficult for fans to deal with. Watching Maggie grieve for her husband as this season has continued and raise the child he never got to meet reminds fans of the loss constantly. A very bittersweet moment between Maggie and her son passes when she tells him about his family, who are all dead, and her son, Herschel, asks about his father. Maggie can't bring herself to tell him who killed him. She only says that it was a bad man. Seeing as the pair have returned to Alexandria, it is likely in the coming 11th season that Herschel will realize who murdered his father. We'll get the tissues ready. Sophia comes out of the barn. Carol's daughter Sophia goes missing in a frantic episode at the beginning of season 2. The rest of the events from this season pretty much go from here, as obviously the group spends significant amounts of time searching for her. From searching the woods near where she vanished, they end up at Herschel's farm, where the gang meet Herschel and his family, and of course, Glenn falls in love. The family like to keep themselves isolated and away from the rest of the world for their own safety, but there's a mysterious barn that nobody is allowed to enter. The gang keeps sending out search parties for Sophia, as well as exploring the area and trying to gather supplies for themselves while they're there. At around the middle of the season, everyone is horrified to discover that Herschel has been gathering walkers and keeping them in the barn in the hope that one day they can be cured and turned back into their former living selves. The mid-season finale sees the barn door finally get open, and the walkers inside get put out of their misery. To everyone's distress, the last walker to stagger out of the barn is a little girl, Carol's missing daughter, who has been locked in the barn as a zombie for what we can assume is most of the season. Carol is absolutely distraught, and Rick has to kill Sophia the same way he kills every other walker. To go for the mid-season break with the last image on the screen being Rick having to take out the turned daughter of his friend is just brutal. Look at the flowers. This next one is related to the last one as Carol's arc continued. Carol went from being a timid mom to a total badass, but she grew close to two little girls, Micah and Lizzie, in the aftermath of them losing their parents and she losing her daughter. Tragedy once again reared its ugly head though, as Lizzie begins to show signs of being mentally unstable. She doesn't seem to understand that walkers are nothing more than murderous, reanimated corpses, and believes that they aren't that different from the people they once were, even thinking that they communicate with her. She even goes as far as to try to get bitten herself, to prove that she would still be the same person if she turned. When this doesn't work, her instability reaches a peak and she stabs her sister Micah, killing her. A horrified Carol comes across the gruesome scene, and Lizzie is quite happy. Convinced that Micah is going to end up coming back as a walker, she is still able to talk to and spend time with, and she reveals that the next thing on her to-do list is to kill baby Judith. Seeing that Lizzie is a threat to anyone around her, in particular other children, Carol makes an incredibly difficult choice. She takes Lizzie out to the back of the property, telling her fondly to look at the flowers. She then raises a gun and shoots her in the back of the head. The fact that Lizzie wasn't a walker, but a living, breathing little girl made this a very impactful scene, coupled with the fact that Carol recently lost her own daughter. Beth dies. Maggie's younger sister, Beth, is the last remaining member of her family, and the two are extremely close. They got separated after the group had to evacuate the prison, and she ended up on the road with Daryl. The pair underwent some pretty amazing character development, as Beth brought some optimism and charm into Daryl's bitter existence, and fans were rooting for them to make it out of the struggle unscathed. The saying that opposites attract was definitely on point here, and the two made an amazing contrasting duo, bringing out the best in each other in a truly charming and beautiful way. However, Beth got kidnapped into slavery, which obviously led to her new bestie Daryl and the others coming to attempt to rescue her. The group didn't feel as though they could safely take down the group holding her without putting her in harm's way, so a hostage trade was agreed. However, Beth tried to take matters into her own hands and stabbed the opposing side's leader with a pair of scissors. This ended up being a mistake, as Beth was promptly killed by the group. The scene ends with Daryl bursting in to save her, but being too late, with the devastated man carrying her body out of the hospital in his arms, in tears. Maggie, upon seeing her sister's body, is inconsolable, and fans are left to wonder how the group will recover from the last little spark of whimsy being extinguished from their lives. Some fans believe that, to this day, the little flicker of humor and hope we see in Daryl is due to Beth's influence during their time alone together. Shiva's sacrifice. Nothing tugs at the heartstrings more than the death of an animal. At least 67% of Ezekiel's stage presence came from his pet tiger, Shiva, who loved him dearly and would do anything to protect him. She was fierce, powerful, and of course a huge tiger, so she scared away pretty much any human threat that came their way. When Ezekiel injured himself in the field, Shiva left in to save him, taking down walkers left and right. However, the horde eventually overpowered her and she fell in battle, succumbing to the huge group of zombies attacking her. Her sacrifice gave her beloved Ezekiel enough time to get away, and he was able to live to remember her. People definitely tend to get more upset at the death of a pet or an animal in movies and TV, so the creators of The Walking Dead were very brave in deciding to kill off easily the coolest animal ever to be in the show.